Okay, now we come towards the concept of cost. Okay, so costs can be of two types, fixed and variable. Fixed cost is the cost which will not change with the number of goods or the number of products. For example, for running a plant, a manufacturing plant, you need X amount of money. So whether after running the plant, you manufacture one product or 1,000 products, that cost will remain the same. Okay, to run the machinery of the plant, you need X amount of cost, and that will remain the same. That is the fixed cost. And the variable cost is the cost which increases with the number of products. Okay, so if I am producing, let's say, one car, it will cost me Y amount of money, and if I am producing Y plus one amount of cars, then it will, or if I am producing two cars, then it will cost me Y plus something amount of money. So that is variable cost. So fixed cost is the one which you have to pay or you have to incur if you have to keep your plant or keep your service running. In terms of transport, it can be, for example, registration fee of your car, or the cost of having buses and the bus station. That is a fixed cost. You want to have a bus service, whether one passenger uses it or 100, you have to keep it. Okay, that is a fixed cost. Variable cost in terms of transport, your fuel cost. You travel more, you have to spend more on the fuel, or the fuel cost of the bus, or other maintenance costs. Okay, so these are the variable cost. Total cost is fixed plus variable. Okay, and then you have the concept of total cost per unit. Okay, so total cost per unit will change, but not because of the fixed cost, it will change because of the variable cost. Okay, and then we have the law of diminishing returns. What is the law of diminishing returns? That you have increase in input units, but it will not increase the output with the same rate. Okay, so for example, I am spending $2. Okay, $2 per unit of output. I'm spending $2 per unit of output. Okay, so I say, why don't I put more effort, maybe buy a bigger machinery, or maybe hire more people to work faster. Okay, now these more people are will cost me, let's say, $2 more. Okay, so the final product should be twice. I was spending earlier $2, now I'm spending $4. Okay, so the number of things I'm producing should also increase by twice, but it will not be the same case. It will not increase by twice. So maybe you double your cost of production, but your output is not doubled. Okay, maybe it increased by 70%, 30%. So this is the law of diminishing returns. Law of diminishing returns states that you may have a slightly lower increase in your output when you increase the production cost. So the return of output will not be the same as the increase in production cost. That is the law of diminishing returns. So you add the cost by 100%, maybe you have 20-30% increase in the output. Okay, then we have law of increasing returns to scale. What is the law of increasing returns to scale? Increase in production factors increase the production with a faster rate. Okay, so for example, you buy a new technology. Okay, you buy a new technology, and because of that, you have bought the new technology, new machinery, but that new machinery is now capable of producing 10 products in the same time in which you are producing 2 products. Okay, so this is following the law of increasing returns to scales. Okay, so law of increasing returns to scale is that you have you increase the output units with a higher rate than the increase in the production effort. So law of diminishing returns and law of increasing returns is inverse to each other, reverse to each other, opposite to each other. Diminishing return is when the increase in production effort is more compared to the rate of production, rate of increase in production, rate of increase in output. and law of increasing return is the rate of increase in output is higher than the increase in production effort. Okay, and obviously we are talking about the cost here. Okay, so let's say alpha is a fixed cost, beta is the variable cost, and C dash is the average cost. Okay, average cost per product, average cost per unit of product. Okay, so total cost will be the total cost of the whole unit or the whole business will be C into Q, where C will be C into Q plus alpha. It should be plus alpha. Okay, but anyways, so C into Q, where alpha is a constant. Okay, alpha is a fixed cost. So even if you say C is alpha plus beta, so beta will be multiplied by Q and alpha will be taken separately as a constant. Okay, because alpha is fixed cost. So if you increase the number of production units, the number of output units, it will only increase beta. Like if it will only increase this component, alpha will remain as it is. Like I was saying, this is a fixed cost. So if I'm producing 100 units or 1000 units, it will have no effect on this component. Even if I produce 0, alpha will remain as it is. Okay, then if you are calculating average cost per product, then you will take alpha plus beta Q divided by Q, the number of units you are producing. Okay, the number of units you are producing. So when you do this, it will be alpha upon Q plus beta upon Q. Obviously Q will be cancelled out, right? So it will be alpha upon Q plus beta upon Q. Okay, so you see here there are two graphs here. Okay, one for total cost, the other one for average cost. Okay, C, capital C and C dash. So you can see the total cost. Okay, it increases linearly. Then at some point at Q dash it increases rapidly. Okay, at a particular point it increases rapidly. Okay, so this is the total cost increasing a lot with less number of products added. So this is the law of diminishing return, and this is the law of return to scale. What was the name here? Of increasing return to scale, sorry. So this is the portion where you have law of diminishing returns. So you increase the cost by more amount, but the number of units are not. Okay, so there are two portions here. The one which is following this one, which is the gradual increase in cost with a gradual increase in number of products, number of outputs, and this is when the cost is very high and the number of products is not so high. Okay, so this is the economy of this region is known as the economy of scale, where the the increase in cost has the same effect as the increase in output units. So this is known as the economy of scale. You are in the equilibrium stage. Okay, or you increase the cost, the number of output units are increasing with the same or with the same rate. Okay, so the economy of scale, decrease in average cost with increase in production. Okay, so this is the portion where it's happening from 0 to Q dash. Okay, so this was the total cost I was talking about. Okay, so if you are in this region, which they are calling as the economy of scale, where the total cost is increasing and with the same rate or with a constant rate, the number of output units are also increasing. This is the economy of scale. And after that, you have the law of diminishing returns. Okay, so in this region, if you are in this region, okay, then in this region, each increase in output unit reduces the average cost. Each increase in output unit is reducing the average cost. Why? Because alpha is constant. Alpha is constant. Okay, so you are dividing with a higher number, so average cost is decreasing. Average cost is decreasing. What happens after Q dash? What happens after Q dash? The beta reduces. The beta does not remain the same. So the number of sorry, not beta does not reduce, beta increases, sorry, beta increases, okay, and the alpha will also increase. So in this region, alpha and beta will change. In this region, the alpha and beta will change, okay, so they will increase. So you are maybe producing 10 units extra, but the cost is increasing maybe 3 times or 4 times, okay. Maybe you are producing maybe 10% extra output, and the cost is increasing by 50-60%. Okay, so that is what is happening after Q dash, and this is what we say as the law of diminishing returns. So up till point Q dash, the economy of scale is maintained. Economy of scale is maintained. Okay, where you are increasing the number of output units and the average cost is decreasing. Let me give an example. For example, to run a bus from point A to B, you require let's say 3 BD of fuel. Okay, you require 3 BD of fuel to run a bus from point A to B. Now this bus can hold 40 people. Okay, so let's say currently the bus is holding 10 people. Currently there are 10 people who are going from A to B. Okay, so the average cost, okay, will be alpha, whatever it is, fixed cost, whatever it is, plus beta, which is at 3 BD, divided by 10, right? 10 people, right? So you will have C dash, one value of C dash. Now if I increase, let me do it here. Okay, so alpha plus 3 into number of people, Q, whatever it is, and then you are divided by Q. Okay, so if Q is 10, okay, so you will have some value of average cost. Okay, let me call it C1, C dash 1. Okay, but if I change the Q from 10 to 20, okay, then I will have another value of C dash, which will be lesser because now you are dividing by 20. Okay, now you are dividing the total cost by 20. Alpha is the same, so this portion remains the same, and this is increasing by the same amount, and then you are dividing by Q again. So the total cost will, so average cost will reduce. So C1 dash will be less than C2 dash. Okay, so if you keep on increasing the number of passengers, the average cost, because you are dividing with Q and Q is also dividing alpha here, alpha upon Q. So this will remain the same, Q upon Q, right? Beta. Q upon Q is what? Beta. So beta is the same, but alpha upon Q, this will keep on decreasing. So C dash will keep on decreasing. Now from 20, it can go up to what? 40. Okay, so Q dash can be up to 40. Up to 40, you can keep on reducing the cost. So when the number of passengers are increasing, the average cost will keep on reducing till you reach the value of Q dash. In this case, Q dash is 40, the number of passengers one bus can hold. Okay, now let's say you want to increase it, their number of passengers are more. Okay, now what will you do? One bus cannot hold more than 40 passengers. Okay, or this bus can only hold 40 passengers. So you will buy a new bus. Okay, and that bus can hold 60 people. Okay, that bus can hold 60 people, but that bus will need what? A new alpha, and this 3 will also increase. It will cost more fuel. Running cost of a larger bus will be more as compared to a smaller bus. Okay, running cost of a car is less as compared to a bus. Okay, so alpha and beta will change. So from Q dash onwards, the Q is 40, where you reach the capacity of the current bus. After that, you will buy a whole new bus and increase alpha and beta, and you will increase the number of passengers maybe by 5, 6. Okay, obviously you will not go to the full capacity. So to increase 5 or 6 passengers in your ridership, you will maybe incur 60% more alpha and beta. Okay, so this is this region. Okay, so you have increased alpha and beta by a lot, but the number of passengers you are adding is maybe 5 or 6 or maybe 10. Okay, so this is an example from the transportation case. Any questions, you can stop me. Okay, if you have any questions, please do stop me, and you can ask your question. Any questions? Clear? Okay, so this is another example. We have number of wagons per train. So train are made up of individual units, right? So each unit is known as a wagon. Okay, so the fixed cost from 1 to 10 wagons per train is same, 55. So whether you are running a train of 1 wagon or 10 wagons, the fixed cost will remain the same. And this is basically the cost of the railway track and the stations and so on. So this will remain the same. Okay, then variable cost. Okay, this is changing when you increase the number of wagons. So 30, 55, 75, 105, 155, and so on. Total cost, obviously, addition of these two, 55 plus 30, and so on. Okay, average cost is basically total divided by number of wagons. Total divided by number of wagons. Okay, so 85 divided by 1 is 85, 110 divided by 2 is 55, and so on. Okay, and then you have the marginal cost. What is the marginal cost? Unit increase in average cost for a unit increase in production. Unit increase in average cost for a unit increase in production. Okay, so when I increase the number of wagons from 1 to 2, the marginal cost increases by 25. From 2 to 3, it increases by 20. 3 to 4 increases by 30, and so on. Okay, so each time I'm just taking the the difference. Okay, and just that's the difference. Okay, and then you see some rounding off here as well. Okay. Okay, then you see two graphs here. The top graph is what is it? Dollars per wagon, and then you have the wagons per train. Okay, and then you have one graph which is for the fixed cost, obviously straight line, and you have one graph which is for the total cost. Okay, which is this column 4. Okay, so you can see up till this point, they are saying this is Q dash, basically up to point where you have 4 wagons per train. This is Q dash, economy of scale. Okay, economy of scale, where you have a constant slope increasing. Okay, and then after that, the cost, the increase in total cost is way higher than the number of units increased. So from here to here, it is increasing with a constant slope from 1 to 4 units, increasing with a constant slope. After 4, it increases with a higher slope. Okay, so and then this is another graph, again dollars per wagon. Okay, and then you have wagons per train. Okay, and in this graph they are showing average and marginal cost, average and marginal cost. So column 5 and column 6. Okay, so if you look at this point, the marginal cost per unit decreasing, then at this point it starts to increase. Okay, so this is the average cost, right? And this is this is the average cost. This one is the average cost. So average cost keeps on decreasing, like I showed you in the previous slide. Average cost keeps on decreasing. You reach the last point, and then it starts to increase again. Okay, so this is my economy of scale. Again, 4 units. Okay, so it was decreasing. Where is it? This one. Decreasing up till here. See here? Up till here, 85 to 55 to 43 to 40. Then it starts to increase again. So this is my Q dash. Okay, up till here I have economy of scale. After that it increases. Okay, then the marginal cost, if you plot it, it's decreasing, then slightly increases here, then it will keep on increasing. Okay, so so the marginal cost is basically the additional cost which you have for a unit increase in the production unit. Okay, so you can see the marginal cost. We are not looking for the lowest marginal cost. We are looking for the lowest average cost. Economy of scale is not at the lowest marginal cost. It is at the lowest average cost. Okay. So the marginal cost may increase, but the average cost is reducing. Okay. So when you go from 3 to, where is it? 25, then 20, from 20 to 30. So you can see, although I'm the marginal cost is increasing. Okay, so the cost, additional cost for adding one wagon, okay, is increasing, but the overall average cost of the system is still going low. Okay, so I will, this much I can still invest. After this point, the investment is not feasible. The investment is not feasible. Okay, so total cost is TC into X, where X is the number of units you are producing. Okay, that is fixed cost plus variable cost into X. The same thing which I showed you as alpha and beta. So alpha is fixed cost, beta is variable cost, average cost is this. Okay, I don't see any change here. The only new thing is a marginal cost. Marginal cost is the total cost when you had X number of units minus the total cost when you had 1 minus X number of units, or X minus 1 number of units. Okay, so when I was producing 1 unit less, how much was the total cost? And when I was producing 1 unit, when I started producing 1 unit more, how much is the total cost? So X here is like a subscript. Okay, it's not multiplying. In this case, don't multiply. It's already total cost. You multiply X with total cost again, you will get a wrong number. So X is not multiplying here. X like a function. Total cost as a function or at a value of X, and total cost as a value of X minus 1. Okay, so this is just a clarification. Keep it in mind. Okay, so marginal cost for X units, if you have an equation for TC, then you can do the derivative of TC with respect to X. Okay, now how did I get this? Can anybody answer me this? TC, derivative of total cost. They are saying derivative of total cost is equal to derivative of variable cost. Why? Can anybody answer this? Why they are saying derivative of total cost equals to derivative of variable cost? Why they are excluding fixed cost from here? Where did the fixed cost go? Anyone? You may get an idea from here as well, maybe anything from here. So derivative of this equals to derivative of only this beta part. Why? Derivative of total cost?
Maybe because in derivative the alpha, the fixed cost is constant, so it will be neglected.
Yeah, good. Because alpha or fixed cost is a constant, so it will become 0. There is no X quantity here. It will become 0. Good. Good. By the way, any questions you don't answer, they will come in the exam. Okay. Okay. So profit, P means profit. Profit is revenue minus cost. Revenue minus cost. How do we calculate the revenue? Price per unit into number of units sold. And how do you find out the cost? Cost per unit into the number of units sold. Okay, so PQ minus CQ. Okay, to maximize the net benefits, the net profits, the necessary condition is that you reach the maximum point of this curve. Okay, let me make it over here. So this is P and this is Q. So it's like a curve. Okay, so we are looking at the maximum point. So at maximum point, the slope is 0. Slope means derivative. Slope means derivative. Okay, in this case, I think, yeah, this is profit. So P is profit, okay, not price, profit, sorry. So number of units sold increased, number of profit increased. Oh, sorry, profit increased. Okay, until you reach here, okay, where the number of units sold are causing you so much in the cost that it is no longer profitable. Again, like I said, this region. Okay, so in this region, you are here. Okay, economy of scale. Economy of scale. So until you reach this point, you are safe side, on the safe side. Okay, so you reach this point, which is the maximum profit you can earn, and since it's a curve, so so at the maximum point, the curve has a slope of 0. Okay, so how to find out the slope of a curve? You take the derivative of the equation of the curve. You take the derivative of the equation of the curve. Okay, so dp upon dq derivative should be equal to 0. dp upon dq should be equal to 0. dp upon dq is the slope of the curve, and slope at the maximum point is always 0. So dp we said is r minus c. So dp upon dq will be derivative of equation of r with respect to q, and minus derivative of equation of q, equation of c with respect to q. Or you can change into this, because r equals to p into q and c equals to c into q. Okay, so by doing this, okay, you are left with did they make any change here? Okay, so if you take this, okay, so you take one thing on the left hand side, other thing on the right hand side. So at maximum profit, the change per unit for profit equals change, the change per unit of revenue equals to change per unit of cost. This is change per unit of profit, and this is change per unit of cost. Change per unit of, sorry, not the profit, revenue is called as marginal revenue, and the change per unit of cost is known as marginal cost. Okay, so MR equals to MC. So when you have maximum profit, at that profit, marginal revenue equals to marginal cost. Increase in revenue per unit increase in production is equal to increase in cost per unit increase in production. Marginal revenue is what? Increase in revenue per unit increase in production. And marginal cost is what? Increase in cost per unit change in production. So both of them should be equal at the maximum point. Okay, so if you are running a factory, so I'm giving you business test, right? You should be paying me more. Okay, anyways, just a joke. Okay, so what I'm saying here is that if you want to reach the maximum profit, then the marginal revenue, increase in revenue per unit production, per unit of production should be equal to increase in cost per unit of production. Okay, this is your maximum point. Now, how do we apply it to transportation? Let us see it here. A transport company hauling goods by truck has a cost function of this 15 into Q 1.25, where C is the total cost of supply Q. So C is the total cost and Q is the supply. Okay, we have to determine the average cost and the marginal cost. Okay, the prove that the cost elasticity is 1.25, and is there any economy of scale? Okay, is there an economy of scale? Okay, so you can see the solution here. Average cost is total cost upon number of units, right? Average cost is total cost upon number of units. So you take total cost, which is C, and you have the equation for C, 15 into Q to the power 1.25, divide by Q, which is the number of units. Okay, so Q power 1.25 divided by Q power 1. So you will be left with 15 into Q to the power 0.25. You will just subtract minus 1, right, which is the average cost. So you have the equation of average cost, which is 15 into Q to the power 0.25. Okay, so this is the first part of A. The second part is find out marginal cost. Marginal cost is change in cost upon change in quantity or change in supply. So you have the equation for DC, you differentiate it with respect to Q. Okay, so when you differentiate it with respect to Q, So 15 into 1.25 because it was the power of q, multiply by q to the power 0.25 because then you subtract -1 from the power, right, for the derivative. So the marginal cost function is this one. Okay. So now just keep one thing in mind here, that when they are not giving you any figures, that the price is this much, the demand is this much, and so on and so forth, like we did in the examples before the prayer, and then they are asking for marginal cost, average cost, and these things, they are basically asking for their equations. Okay, so don't get confused why we were calculating numbers in the previous questions and why we are calculating, why we are recalibrating the equations. It is because in this case, they did not tell me the number of units produced or the number of passengers or the price or the fare. Nothing of this sort is given. Okay. So, and one more point here is they are applying this example to a transport company which is hauling or transporting goods. Okay, so for every unit of good which they are transporting, this is the cost which they have. Okay, so we derive the total cost, average cost function, total cost function was given. Then we come to the point of elasticity, the cost elasticity. They are saying prove that it is 1.25. Okay, so elasticity is given as marginal cost upon average cost. Marginal cost upon average cost. Why? Let me again, it's like a derivation, not a derivation. If you go back to the previous slides where we started the discussion of elasticity, you will see why I'm saying this. Okay, so what is marginal cost? Marginal cost is dc upon dq, right? And what is average cost? Average cost is cost upon q. If you see the equation, so this is what dc cost upon q, right? Yeah, so it's basically change in cost per unit cost divided by change in supply per unit supply. Okay, or should I, sorry, I should have written the reverse. AC is in the denominator, right? So it's Q upon C basically. Sorry for that. So I can write it like this: DC upon C divided by this whole thing divided by dq upon q. What is this? Change in cost per unit cost. What is this? Change in supply per unit supply. Okay, so this is elasticity. This is elasticity. Okay, change in 1 unit or something divided by change in per unit of something else. Okay, in the previous examples it was demand and price. In this example it is cost and supply. Okay, so this is how we came up with this equation. Okay, so MC we already have the equation, AC we already have the equation. We just plug in the values of the equation. So Q will be cancelled out. 18.75 upon 15 will give you 1.25. Okay, so this is the elasticity. There is another way, an easier way. They did not do it, and good. It is good that you looked at something new here. But there's another way by which I can solve this, which is how we did it at the start of this lecture today. At the start of today's lecture, this looks like which model? Somebody remembers? We discussed a model today at the start. What was the name of the model? It was given with the power. The first 2-3 examples which we did. What was the name of the model? Anyone? Okay, will come in the exam, inshallah. Okay, so basically, if you go back to that model, then whatever is in the power is already the elasticity. Okay, if you go back to the model, according to that model, whatever is in the power is the elasticity for the output. Okay. So the final question was, is there an economy of scale? Okay, so economy of scale does not exist because the average cost increases with Q. Okay, how am I saying average cost increases with Q? When I increase the value of Q, okay, it will increase the average cost. You can see it is because of the power. Okay, if it had been negative, then it would have been the other way around. If this power was negative, instead of 0.25, if I had minus point something, then average cost will reduce with the increase in Q. But since the power is positive, so every time you increase Q, C dash will also increase. Okay, so there is no economy of scale. Economy of scale is where you increase the number of units and the average cost is decreasing. Okay, so in this equation, the Q, whenever you can try yourself, put Q as 2 and then 3 and then 4 and see whether the average cost is increasing or not. But if you just want to see it, it will increase because of the power. If the power would have been negative, it would have been the other way around. There would have been economy of scale. Okay, any questions? Any questions? Clear? Okay, then we come to the concept of pricing and subsidies. Is there any question?
No, doctor, no.
Okay, pricing and subsidies. Whenever you have congestion, you have 3 options available to you. Whenever you have congestion, you have 3 options available to you. You have traffic jam, 3 options available. Do nothing. Do nothing. Let the people sort out. Let them wait. Let them be on the highway for 20-30 minutes extra. I don't have the money. This is not my priority. Okay. Or increase the capacity with more lanes, or by providing a bridge or whatever. So increase the capacity of the road. Okay, I think one of you gave me an example in the first class that when they built the bridge, the capacity increased from 900 something to some 1,000 vehicles. Okay, so this is another option. Increase the capacity of the road. Okay. Third option is restrict the use of the road. Okay. Give some penalty to the people for using the road more, so they will use the road less. If you go for option 1, obviously you are leaving the road in the congested condition. You are not doing anything. If you go for option 2, it will lead to congestion in future. It will lead to congestion in future. I already showed you. Let me go back. This figure. So when you improve the supply, improving the supply means increasing the capacity. When you improve the supply, you will reduce the per unit cost of the use of the road. So when you had 2 lanes, now it is 3 lanes. So the travel time is less, fuel is less consumed. What will happen? People will be attracted towards that road. People will come to that road in a higher number. Okay, so they will increase the demand for that road will eventually increase. Okay, and this will result in increase in congestion maybe after a few years. Okay, and if you want to see more, go back to the last lecture where we discussed the land use and transportation cycle. So whenever you do whenever you do some improvement to the road, it increases the land use and land value, increases the traffic demand and so on. We discussed the whole cycle last time. So option 1, congestion. Option 2, congestion after a few years. Okay. If you go for option 3, then you have 3 strategies possible. How can I restrict the road use? I can put taxes on people who are living far from the commercial areas or far from the city center. Okay, because these people are causing the congestion. They are coming by cars mainly. If I am living near to my school, why would I take a car to go to the school, right? So The problem is somebody who is coming from maybe 10, 15 kilometers. So maybe put more taxes on people who are living in the suburbs or the boundary areas of the city. Okay, this can be one possible solution to discourage people living far away from the center of the city. Okay. Second option can be provide subsidies on public transport, buses, rail, decrease their fares so it becomes more attractive. I think this doesn't need any explanation. The third point is increasing the cost of motoring, cost of using the car. Now, the cost of using the car can be increased in the form of taxes or congestion pricing. Now, we discuss congestion pricing in detail, but taxes, you know, fuel taxes, car taxes, tax on car import, tax on car registration, increase the tax. So people who own a car, it becomes more expensive for them. Okay, and you can do these strategies simultaneously as well. Like, it doesn't have to be one at a time. You can increase the tax on fuel, at the same time decrease the fare of the buses. Okay, this can happen simultaneously. Okay, so in this figure you see a curve, and then you see with the curve, now this is the cost per trip on the y-axis for the user, road user, how much cost per trip he is having, and the flow of vehicles. Okay, now you can see from point A to L, the cost to the user is the same. The cost to the user is the same. From point L onwards, the average cost starts to increase. The average cost starts to increase. So beyond point L, when the flow starts to increase beyond point L, yeah, this is what they're saying. Every additional vehicle slows down the others with some marginal time. So until you reach point L, everybody is moving with the same or almost at the same average travel time. But after that, every additional vehicle in the traffic flow is slowing down others. So you reach a point on the road where every new vehicle added to the road will increase the travel time for everybody. Increase the travel time for everybody. And when the travel time increases, your cost increases. Cost of time, cost of fuel, cost of maintenance, everything is increasing. Okay. So average cost is increasing and the marginal cost is also increasing. Okay, we have discussed average cost means total cost per unit of vehicle, and the marginal cost is increase in cost with the increase in additional vehicle. Okay, increase in the previous cost, increase in the road cost per unit cost of vehicle. Okay, so until point OL there is no problem. After point L, then you start to see the cost for everybody is increasing and the marginal cost also keeps on increasing. So with every new vehicle added to the road, the cost to everybody is increasing with a higher rate. This is what we are saying. Okay, the cost to everybody is increasing with a higher rate. So for example, when there were 500 vehicles on the road, new vehicle added, so the average cost increased from, let's say, 100 fils to 110 fils. Okay, so increase by 10 fils. Marginal cost increased by 10 fils. Another vehicle added, now the marginal cost will not increase by 10 fils. It may increase by 30 fils. Okay, so congestion cost does not increase linearly. You can see here, marginal cost is a curve which is increasing very rapidly with every increase in the flow value. Okay, so every vehicle added to the queue after point L, it increases the cost, the increase in the cost. It also increases the rate of increase in the cost. Let me call it this way. Okay. So point OL without any problem, and then we have point OB. So what is OB? This is an equilibrium cost per trip. Now equilibrium when the supply is equal to demand. Equilibrium is supply is equal to demand. So this is your supply curve and this is your demand curve. So they are meeting here at point J. Okay, so wherever the supply and demand curve are meeting, this is equilibrium point. So this is the equilibrium cost per trip. Okay, you are providing the same number of lanes as the demand. Providing the same number of lanes or providing the same design of the road which is catering the demand of the vehicles. So you require, let's say, 2000 vehicles per hour. The demand is 2000 vehicles per hour. Your design of the road is exactly providing 2000 vehicles per hour. Okay, obviously you can see at equilibrium what is happening. Is this economy of scale? No. Is this economic of scale? No. You are still on the higher side, but your demand is equal to supply. Your demand is equal to supply. Okay, so this is the equilibrium point, and the cost OB is your equilibrium cost per trip. Okay, now the pricing principle says you should stop where? I told you, where is the profit maximum? Where is the profit maximum? When marginal cost becomes equal to average cost. When marginal cost becomes equal to average cost. Where it is happening? At point M. Okay, so I can allow a little bit of congestion on the road. I can allow a little bit of congestion on the road until marginal cost becomes equal to the average cost, because up till point M, I have not reached the maximum revenue, or the maximum the maximum revenue, right? The maximum profit. So the maximum profit, if I want to impose a tax on the vehicles for using the road, it should be imposed when the flow reaches M, because when the flow reaches M, what happens? Marginal cost becomes equal to average cost. Okay, so when I am doing congestion pricing, okay, now what is congestion pricing? Let me explain it. In congestion pricing, you will set up a toll booth, okay, a booth or a barrier or a check post on the road which is congested, or the area which is congested. Okay, and any vehicle which is entering that area, they will pay a fee to you. Okay, they will pay a fee to you, okay, for using that road during the congested time. Obviously off peak hours, no problem. So this tax, this extra tax which you are paying to enter the road or to enter the congested area, is known as congestion pricing. It's a congestion price. Okay, now how much cost I can charge from the drivers? How much cost I can charge from the drivers? Okay, in the congestion pricing, how much should I ask them to pay me? I should ask them to pay how much? Point C. Because C will do what? At point C, marginal cost is equal to average cost, and this is my maximum profit point, which I explained earlier. From the cost principle, from the pricing principle, whenever marginal cost becomes equal to average cost, that is the point where you should OM, yeah, OM. So at point M, the flow has the same sorry, I'm missing something. It's not my the cost is not equal. Sorry, the cost is, yeah, okay. So the demand curve is reaching the marginal cost. Sorry. The demand curve is reaching the marginal cost. That is the M point. Okay. Sorry for that. Okay. So the pricing principle says that where the demand curve reaches the marginal cost curve, there you should stop. That is the maximum revenue, the maximum cost you can ask from the user. Okay, where the marginal cost reaches the demand curve. Okay, so every after this curve, okay, after this curve, the the marginal cost will keep on increasing. Okay, so the demand should be restricted up to this point. The demand should be restricted up to this point, where the demand curve is reaching the marginal cost curve. Okay, and that is point M, and the reason is that if you are allowing the curve to go beyond point M, if you are allowing the curve to go beyond point M, then you are going above the equilibrium condition. Okay, so the equilibrium, the new equilibrium is when marginal cost curve meets the demand curve. Okay, so this was the average cost curve, okay, which is the equilibrium cost per trip. But when you are looking at the when you are charging the user, so you are charging the user for this extra cost which he is adding. Okay, so he is when you go from point J to point F, what is happening? The demand is increasing. The demand is reducing. Okay, the demand is reducing. So you have to reduce the demand from point J to point F. Okay, from point J to point F. What was point J? Where the demand and average cost curve were meeting, and what was point F? Where the demand and marginal cost curve are meeting. So demand and average cost curve will meet where the demand is equal to supply. The demand is equal to supply, and I want to restrict it, so I want to keep it below congestion level. Okay, demand equals to supply means congestion. Okay, as I explained earlier, so I want to reduce it, so I will reduce it from N to M. Okay, so I am putting extra cost. How much extra cost? It was B, and I am putting extra cost of C, so it will reduce the demand from J to F, or it will shift the demand from J to F, or it will shift the demand from N to M. Okay, sorry for the earlier confusion. Okay, I misinterpreted the axes. Okay, so cost is on the y-axis, so it is not equal. It is not equal. Okay, like it is equal at all these points here, but that is not the point here. Okay, the point here is I want to reduce demand from N to M, because this is the point where the marginal cost curve is meeting the demand curve. Okay, so the marginal cost, the demand is to a point where the marginal cost is fully satisfied. Okay, I hope the example can clear it out. So Federal Highway Administration has the following relationship between travel time on a highway and the volume, vehicles per hour. Okay, the highway length is 10 miles. The length of the highway is 10 miles. Okay, the travel time for vehicles traveling on this section is given by the demand function is this much. Okay, T is the travel time on the highway, and V is the volume of traffic on the highway section, and the demand function for the highway is this much. Okay, this is a demand function, this is a travel time function. Okay, in this travel time function, we are using volume on the highway. Now, what is the difference between the volume and the demand? Demand can be equal to volume, or it can be more than volume. Demand can be equal to volume, can be more than volume. Okay, when the highway is uncongested, demand is equal to volume. Number of people who want to use the highway is equal to the actual volume on the highway. Okay, and demand can be more than volume when the highway is congested. It is traffic jam. Why? Capacity of the highway was less, and number of people who want to use the highway is more. So there are more people on the highway than the actual volume which can pass through the highway. Okay, so the volume is the actual number of cars which are passing through the highway. It can be equal to demand, or it can be less than demand, but it is the number of vehicles which are passing through the highway. That is V. So D can be more than V as well. D can be more than V as well. Okay, and the travel time is dependent upon demand is dependent upon travel time. Travel time is less, demand will be more. You can see that negative sign here. What else? The highway users value time at $5 per vehicle per hour. The value of time for highway users is $5 per vehicle per hour. What should be the congestion toll which should be applied to this section of the highway? Okay, how much toll we should apply to the section of the highway? Okay, for this travel time taken by all vehicles, it is given here. So that is travel time of one vehicle multiplied by number of vehicles passing through the highway, which is V. Okay, so T into V. This is a travel time taken by all vehicles. So if you multiply T into V, you will be getting this. Okay, so this is just V multiply with this whole bracket. Okay, so this will take you, give you this much. This is the total travel time taken by all vehicles. Okay, and if you want to calculate marginal travel time per vehicle, marginal increasing travel time per change in volume. This is marginal increase in travel time per unit increase in volume. So that will be, again, you take the derivative. If you take the derivative, you will be left with this. Okay, so obviously this bracket was already opened. Okay, so again, the V will go out basically, but you will be multiplying with 5. Okay, all numbers will be multiplied with 5. Okay, so this is multiplied by 5, this is multiplied by 5. Okay, so this is the marginal time. Okay, so now you can plot a curve between time and volume. Okay, and you can plot the curve for average travel time, and you can plot the curve for marginal travel time. You have the equations for both of them. Okay, so this is the volume. From volume you can calculate average travel time. Okay, using this equation. Okay, and from average travel time you can calculate demand. Sorry, you can calculate demand using using this equation. Okay, so what volume is arbitrary. I am putting different values of volume. Okay, I'm putting different values of volume myself. Okay, so I put volume as 1000, as 1500, 2000, 2500, 3000, and so on. So these values are not coming from anywhere. These are values which I'm trying. Okay, so I put value one by one in the travel time equation, average travel time equation. This is the average travel time equation. Travel time for one person, travel time per person, travel time per person. Okay, so this is giving me average travel time. Okay, and this is plotted here, curve A. Okay, curve A is the average travel time per person, personal travel time. Okay, and then using travel time you calculate demand. Okay, using travel time you calculate demand, and this is the demand value. Okay, and then you can plot the demand as well here. So this is another curve for demand. Okay, time and demand. So time on the y-axis and demand on the x-axis. So this is another curve. Okay, then you can calculate the speed using time. You can calculate the speed because highway has 10 miles. The highway has 10 miles. So you can calculate the speed. I don't know whether it is, did they ask for it? They didn't ask for it. Anyways, but you can calculate the speed because you know the average travel time and you know the length of the highway. You can calculate the speed, distance upon time, no problem. Only thing you have to convert this minutes into hours. Okay, but speed is not the point of discussion here. So you can calculate the speed as well. And then you have the equation for marginal travel time, this equation. So again, it depends upon V. So keep on inserting the values of V, okay, until like every value which you have tried for T, you try it for marginal time as well. Okay, so these are the marginal time. The increase in time, marginal time is what? Increase in time per unit increase in volume. Per unit increase in volume. So up to 1000 vehicles, the marginal time is increasing by 10.5 minutes. Every vehicle is increasing the travel time by 10.5 minutes. Then up to 1500 vehicles, every vehicle is increasing the travel time by 12.5 minutes. And then every vehicle is increasing the travel time by 17.5 minutes and so on. Okay, this is what we are saying here. Increase in total travel time divided by increase in volume. Okay, this is total travel time. Keep in mind, DTV, not DT, DTV. Okay, so total travel time for all travelers is increasing by 10.5 minutes up to 1000 vehicles. Up to 1500 vehicles, it is increasing by 12.4 minutes. Okay, so these are the increase in total travel time. Okay, so up to 3000 vehicles, the marginal time will increase up to 48 minutes. Okay, So now you can see here the same curves which we talked about earlier. Curve A is the for average travel time, curve B is for marginal travel time, and this is the demand curve. So you can see from this curve at how much flow you have to reduce. Okay, so where is the equilibrium point? This is the equilibrium point. 2,560 vehicles is the equilibrium point. Okay, at this point supply is equal to demand. After this point, you go above the capacity of the road. Okay, after this point, you go above the capacity of the road. And then, like we said earlier, we have to reduce it from this point to this point. So I will apply some extra cost so that the demand is reduced from here to here. This extra cost is the money which I will charge from the user. The money which I will charge from the user. Okay. So at now the cost is this is in terms of time. Okay, this is in terms of time. Keep in mind you are not plotting the time directly. Oh, sorry, you're not plotting the cost directly. You're plotting time. Okay, so from here to here, how much extra time the user have to spend? This is 14.3, and at the new equilibrium point, it is 19.12 seconds. Okay, 12 minutes. So if you let the demand go from here to this point, it will increase the cost, or it will increase the travel time from 14.3 seconds to 19.12 seconds. Okay, so I want to reduce it. I want to keep it up to this point. So what I will do, the extra amount of time which you are causing the users, the extra amount of time, or the amount of marginal time you are causing to the users, I will take it from you as an extra money. Okay, the amount of time you are causing to the user in the marginal cost, I will take it from you in terms of money. Okay, so here if the demand was stopped here, the travel time would have been 14.3 seconds, 14.3 minutes, but I want to stop it here. Okay, so in this case, the travel time should be 19.12 minutes. Okay, so from 19.12, this is the point. Sorry. Okay, so the average travel time at this point is 11.82 seconds. I was saying 14.3 again, sorry. There's some problem with these curves. Okay, it is like confusing my mind. Whenever I see these curves, this is doing something to my mind. Anyways, so when you reach this point where the demand curve is meeting the marginal time curve, okay, the average cost is 11.82 minutes, okay, and the marginal cost is marginal time is 19.12 minutes. Okay, so at this point you are causing 19.12 minutes extra to all the users. At this point, you are causing 19.12 minutes extra to all the road users. Okay, so you should pay me this much amount of money. You should pay me this much amount of money. The amount of time you are causing extra to the users. Okay, so the average travel time is 11.82. The marginal one is 19.12. Okay, so you take the difference, you come out to be, it comes out to be 17.3 minutes. Okay, and each minute is $5. No, not each minute, $5 per vehicle per hour. This is the time value of money for the highway users. Time value of money for the highway users. For every hour saved, I'm willing to pay $5. Or every hour of my time is $5. Okay, if you want to know how much is your price per hour, get it from your salary, right? You get it from your salary. So you are paid, for example, 1000 BD per month, and you are working for how many hours? Let's say you are working for 100 hours in the month. So 1000 divided by 100 will give you the time value of your money, and you can do the same thing with average salary. Okay, so the highway users which are using that highway and have an average salary of this much, and their number of working hours per month are on average this much, you can calculate the time value of money for them. Okay, so their time value of money is $5. So every hour they are spending extra on the highway is $5, worth $5 to them. Okay. So any demand which goes beyond this point, which goes beyond 2100 up to 2560, any vehicle added from 2100 extra, from 2100 onwards, will increase the marginal time by 19.12 minutes, from 11.82 to 19.12 minutes. Okay, so 19.12 minus 11.82, you are increasing the average travel time by 7.3 minutes. So 7.3 minutes in terms of dollars is $0.61. It was $5 per hour. Okay, and this is in minutes. So 7.3 divided by 60, converted to hour, multiplied by $5, which is per hour cost for the highway user. So how much how much toll you should be paying? $0.61. How much toll you should be paying? $0.61, and this is dollars per per mile. Okay, $0.61 per mile. Okay, so then you multiply with the length of the section, which is 10. Okay, so 10 miles multiplied by 0.61, it will be 6.1 cents per mile. No, sorry. You are dividing by 10. Okay, this is the total toll for the whole highway. Total toll for the whole highway is 0.61. Divided by 10 miles, it will give you 6.1 cents per mile, because this is in dollars and this is in cents. So dollar into cents multiplied by 100. Okay, and then divide by 10. So 6.1 cents. 6.1 cents. Okay. Now the last point. With that, I will close and we will finish this topic as well. The last point. What is the importance of marginal cost here? What is the importance of marginal cost here? Why we are trying to reduce the demand up till the marginal cost? Okay. Now, average travel time is your own travel time, right? Average travel time is what? Your own travel time. So everybody, for example, if I'm at this point, average travel time is what? 11.82 minutes. 11.82 minutes. This is my travel time and travel time of everybody else who is on the highway. Average travel time for everybody. What is 19.12? Now, because of these 2100 vehicles, there is an increase of travel time of 19.12 for all road users. So these 2100 vehicles are causing a total extra travel time of 19.12 for all road users. So when you divide by each person, maybe it will not be so much. 19.12 divided by 2100 will not be so much. Okay, and this is why you don't realize it. This is why we don't realize it. If my own travel time is increasing, or if I'm paying something from my pocket, like I will pay 6.1 cents per mile, or in 10 miles I will pay 61 cents. These 61 cents are coming out of my pocket, so I will realize it. Okay, but if I don't have to pay these 61 cents on this highway, what will happen? I just know that my travel time is 11.82 minutes. So if this is acceptable for me, I will go on this highway, and you can see this is below the equilibrium point. So this is acceptable for everybody. This is acceptable for everybody up till the equilibrium point, no problem. But we know as transportation planners that if you go beyond this point, you are increasing the marginal cost to everybody. Okay, so the demand should be restricted up to this point so that the marginal cost can be restricted up till X. Okay, because if you let the demand go up to this point, what will happen? The marginal cost will also increase. So this is 2560, right? At 2560, which is the actual equilibrium point, at 2560, what is the travel time here? The marginal travel time here. The marginal travel time is somewhere between them. It will be close to maybe 30 minutes. 30 minutes. So if I let the demand go up to the equilibrium of the travel time point. What will happen? I'm causing half an hour delay to everybody. Half an hour delay to everybody. Okay. But if I keep the demand up till this point, which is 2100 vehicles, how much delay I'm causing to everybody? Only 7.3 minutes. And for that, even then, the users are paying. Okay. So I have made the users realize that you are causing this much amount of money to all the road users. So pay it to me so I can invest it on the highway. If I don't let it, if I don't take it from the users, the demand will go up to this point and the delay to everybody will not be 7.3 minutes, it will be half an hour. Okay, it will go up to this point. Okay, and you can, subtract it from here, but it will obviously in any case it will be more than 7.3 minutes. It will be more than 7.3 minutes. Okay, so we are marginal time or marginal cost in terms of highway use is basically the cost or time extra which you are causing to everybody in addition to the average travel time which is for everybody. Okay, if you were not there on the highway, the average travel time for everybody would have been less. It would have been less. Less by how much? Less by the marginal time or the marginal cost. Okay, so this is the point of having marginal time or marginal cost. Okay, that is to realize, make everybody realize that you are causing some extra amount of time or the extra amount of money to other road users, and you should pay it from your pocket so that the demand is maintained. Okay, any questions, any queries, any suggestions, anything you want to say? Please go ahead. I took 2 minutes extra, but I think you guys came late as well. So equilibrium, right? This is equilibrium. Okay, in that case, thank you. See you all next week. Have a nice week. All the best. Assalamu alaikum.